Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the First Class, Second Place podcast. I'm your host, Jason Enrique, and we got another very first class guest up in the building today. But before we continue, I want to remind everybody that we're live at Bravery Studios in Garfield, New Jersey. Shout out to Mark Behind the Glass. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have another first class guest in the house today. Well, actually, he's a virtual, but he's going to be joining us, and it feels like he's in spirit right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the author of this book right here that I have, The World as I See It, the poem of my environment. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than the poet Elliot Fant. How you doing, Elliot?
I'm good, baby. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. So it's nice to finally meet you. Even though it's virtual, we were actually introduced to each other by a mutual friend of ours, Lori Love. Shout out to Lori Love. And I know that you both are poets, and I'm pretty sure that you guys have shared, art and so on and so forth. So what's the dynamic there between the two of you?
Yeah, Lori and I, man, it was definitely through poetry, and vendorship. She came and vendored at a few of my speakeasies, few of my poetry events. I do a monthly poetry event called Poetry in the Bricks, which is formerly known as Rebel Serious, right here in the city of Newark. And I always just loved her energy. Very smart, very grounded. You know, really dope person. It's a lot of people that they're great poets, but then when you get to know them, they're kind of so people. Then there are middling poets who are great people. She is like the perfect balance of both. A great poet, but even more importantly, a great person. And always have my back. Always speaking words of encouragement. Always with support. And we need friends like that. We need people like that in our corner. She's a wonderful person, wonderful human being.
Absolutely. Shout out to Lori Love. You and I, we come from different worlds, but there's certain things that kind of, bond us together, for lack of a better term. And I'll give you an example what I mean by that. So you just mentioned right now that, unfortunately, your mother was murdered at the age of 21 when you were 2 years old. So first and foremost, my condolences as far as that's concerned. And you were kind of using the art of the pen to basically contextualize what you were feeling and trying to get this angst that was out of you. Meanwhile, you have me who comes from a different world than you, where I was actually using the power of a pen, because there was at one point where I wasn't writing poetry or anything like that. I was just putting down a lot of thoughts from pen to paper, and that was like my outlet to just get all this angst out of me. And it was because my mother was the one that was driving me up a wall here and there, and other family members. And it's just amazing how you can come from two different dynamics, but we all kind of go through the same thing in some way, shape, or form. Like, you could be drowning in 6 feet of water. I'm drowning in 4 feet of water, but we're still drowning. And it kind of brings us to finding out what that outlet that we need in order to get us out of whatever we're going through at that particular moment.
Yeah, I think humanity in general, I think across racial lines, across gender lines, across class lines, we're a lot more closer than a lot of us care to admit or acknowledge. Whether people around you are passing away, whether you have fractured relationships with the parents, the people that are here, we're all fighting, for a level of understanding of ourselves and for the world to understand our plight. Typically, I think, where the world begins to crumble and we get the state of affairs that we're in currently is where there's a lack of respect for those barriers and those boundaries and those differences amongst people, you know, and you can talk about spirituality, religion, oh, my religion is more real than yours, or my life story is more hard than yours. I grew up harder than you did. Oh, men have it easier than women, light skin, dark skin. Everybody's always looking for something to delineate, you know what I'm saying? And that's where we get a lot of the angst, that we're under collectively, as a nation and in our respective communities, I believe.
No, I agree with you. Now, so when as you started to figure out a little bit more about, like, you started to put the pen to the paper, and you're just pulling out your thoughts, and you're kind of journaling, and then you kind of contextualize into poetry form. I mean, when did you realize that this is like a knack for this? Because was there ever that moment where people actually decided, they were actually discovering your art, and then afterwards they were complimenting how good it was, and then it was just that a light bulb that went off in your head, like, okay, maybe this is something that I could really take advantage of and take it to the next level and actually make my name known what this is going to be for?
Uh, where poetry converted from hobby and kind of a something for me to fall back on to deal with my own inner strife. When it converted from that to something that I could monetize was really in a 2 year span. And my senior year of high school, I went to a predominantly white high school. I went to a private school. I got accepted into a program called A Better Chance, which is for inner city honor roll students. I, yeah, it's like a part, like I teach now, and the kids still, have to get accepted into these programs. Seeds, A Better Chance. It's numerous of them that reward inner city kids and give them opportunity for quote unquote better education, elsewhere in smaller school districts. So I was living in East Orange. I got accepted into that program. My grandmother, who raised me, both my grandmothers had a hand in raising me. One is still alive, 81 years old, and the other one passed away right before COVID began. My mother's mother in 2020. But my father's mother raised me during those years when I was in East Orange, and she's the one that got me into that school. She didn't want me going to East Orange public school for high school. She felt all my friends were hoodlums or gangbangers or, and all of them were going to the same schools. She felt like if I went there, either I was going to get involved because I had a really bad temper back then, and she felt like a change of scenery, a change in environment would be absolutely what I needed, so I could actually get through high school and set myself up, to be a man. She felt like I wasn't going to have the opportunity if I went to East Orange High School, so I went in there kicking and screaming because, you know, kid, when you a kid, like, I see now that it was important for her to do that. And I thank her now, but as a 15-year-old, when you're outside and somebody says, somebody, we on a basketball court, yeah, yo, this pussy he go to school in Hoboken. You know what I'm saying? Now you got to semi get in a fight because they think you soft because you ain't going to the same school that the rest of us going to. Little shit like that. That's all you care about is your respect amongst the people that you have to be around. So my senior year at that school, which was in Hoboken, I was right there when the Twin Towers fell. That was my junior year. Um, and we heard so we saw that happen. Um, but that senior year, I was asked to do a memoir. It was for an English class. Again, something that had to do with school. I did a memoir piece about my life, and to that point, I never really talked about what happened to my mother, my father. My friends didn't know, the teachers didn't know what I grew up in and where I was living and or what my background was, because I was more like the class clown then. I wanted to make people laugh, and I wanted to make people feel easy. Um, so I didn't really talk about those things.
Well, do you feel like you were the class clown and trying to make everybody laugh as a kind of a way to mask what you were really going through and what you were feeling, and also, yeah, because I feel like that's the case with a lot of even famous comedians that we know and love that are considered legends now, where they use comedy and making other people laugh to mask whatever they're going through, so that they wouldn't have to be able to share that angst that is within them as well.
Richard Pryor is the primary example of that. If you look at his background, his life, oh my goodness, unless he talked about it and he talked about it in a way that was comical, unless you did some digging, you wouldn't even have any idea. But that's where, the other stuff crept into his life, the drugs, the freebasing and stuff, all that stuff. So even while you're making people laugh, you still got those things pulling on you. But I you know, it's a part of wanting to be accepted too and wanting to be loved and embraced. And you feel like when people laugh or people like yo, like it gives you a sense of I'm cool. When I could be in a classroom and undermine a teacher in front of my buddies and shit and get sent to the office, now you automatically a superstar, amongst them.
It was a good ego boost, yeah.
And but you the one in detention, you the one going to get your ass whooped when you go home But at that point, it don't even matter, like because you come home, you go to school the next day off the suspension. You're like, so that was what it was about, really. But
Yeah. I mean, I mean, if you ask me, it's very Andy Dufresne like, which actually is a nice segue because we can get into your book here a little bit, which is what we got right here. The world as I see it, but I is spelled with Eye. That's also pretty interesting. So we'll get into that as well. But I got a chance to read the book, researched it. I thought you were very exceptionally talented. I felt like there was a lot of emotions while reading this book. I feel like this entire book was an emotional roller coaster, for lack of a better term, with everything that you go through. Because there's a lot of highs and a lot of downs, but I feel like overall it was very well balanced. And I actually find this part that's really interesting, where you have in the front you cover with the bandana, but you got the devil's horns, but then you flip it around, same thing, but just with a halo around your head. So I kind of took. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm kind of feeling like it's kind of made by design, because when you first read it, you kind of like in this hell that he's bringing you into, and then you're coming out on top after as soon as you finish it.
the story, and I'll answer your question because I never really did answer your last question. I was getting around to it, so I'll answer that in a second. But the story that goes behind the cover, and that which is why and if now that you follow me on Instagram, you see kind of my stories, and you see um, the Halo Horn concept was something that I forgot how it came to me or exactly why, but we started experimenting with how to do a cover that would pop, that you really haven't seen on a book before. And so my graphic design guy's named Jabez. We were playing around with different images, playing around with different. We had the picture with the bandana, which really was just me covering my face because that picture actually was shot during COVID. So I had to cut. I was, we had face covering or whatever still. So my friend Amira did the picture, and then we're like, how could I? And then I started thinking about I wrote a little bit about this in the beginning, but it's the duality of man. It's the part of us, which is the Halo side, that is born innocent, is born non-judgmental, is born, wishing well, is born not seeing color or class or anything negative like that. It's the part of you that, is natural and of the world and for the world around you. And then the horn side is the side of us that's kind of manipulated by society, manipulated by those around us, manipulated by false teachings, negative teachings that are coming from some people who say they love us, but they're implementing bullshit into us, and they're perverting our mindset, like the Klan, like somebody who's a Klansman, like when a white baby is born in, I don't know, 1930s Indiana, they're still innocent, but it's the people that raise them that tell them, oh, black people are this, or you know or it's oh, Spanish people are this, or like it's people that are dumping into you, their nonsense, and turning us, manipulating us, and perverting us into becoming something other than our natural selves. So that duality of man, that concept of who we start out trying to be versus what we end up becoming a lot of times, or having to become to deal with the world around us, is a tug of war for all of us. It's definitely a tug of war for me.
Mm. Now, one of the things that I've realized ever since I got into this podcast game is marketing is everything, and I'm also a huge hip hop head. And I mentioned this on a couple of episodes before, where one of my favorite groups is Griselda. West Side Gun, Conway the Machine, Benny the Butcher, so on and so forth. And one of the things that they're famous for, as far as like their music, is they have a lot of songs that are named after actual people or fictional characters, but the song doesn't necessarily have to do with the actual title. It's just basically trying to grab you and grab your attention, and then afterwards they got you in, and then they introduce you to some dope music. So segue into your book right here. One of my favorite movies of all time is Shawshank Redemption, and you actually have a poem in here that's called Andy Dufresne. And while I'm reading it, you do mention Andy Dufresne, but I guess I kind of want to see if you could elaborate a little bit more on how you were able to, base this poem based on Andy Dufresne when it's not really all about the Shawshank Redemption in this poem.
No, it was more dealing with or the expression of the fact that you brilliant. So I start that poem, if I remember correctly. How can I complain when I've been blessed with the brain of Andy Dufresne? Like so it's like why are you complaining? You that is naturally embedded in you. That skill to kind of like he was trying to break out of the prison. You can break out of the prison of your own circumstance. So that line just came to me just like that off of watching the movie and watching him and Morgan Freeman's character, within that dynamic. And that line just came to me. How can I complain when I've been blessed with the brain of Andy Dufresne? You know, um, uh, Peace be still. I pray it isn't my will that I fall prey to a piece of steel, like so many before me. You know, um,
Protect me from being a footnote in the same story,
Story,
from boxes that threaten my
my
growth
growth and
and
my
my
glory.
glory.
Yeah. So it's saying that the power is in your hands. You always had the answers. You just got to implement what you know, what's naturally been gifted to you.
I love that. I love that. And me being a sucker for movies in general, I love the Andy Dufresne, reference in there. So kudos to you. Now, also, what really caught my eye is in the book. It's not a poem, but it was just on one page, and it was blown up. It was a picture, and it really resonated with me. You said, "In a city of trends, you are here to start your own." And I think that it's a very simplified message. There's not a lot to really go into it. I mean, you collaborate if you want, but what I like about it is because I feel like that's where we are overall in general as a society. Like everybody's trying to do the trendiest thing, especially with social media being out there. Everybody's doing TikTok things. Everybody's trying to be a podcaster. Everybody's trying to put out music and this, that, and the third. And it just seems like if you want to do that, that's fine, but maybe not follow the same formula that everybody else is doing. Like I mentioned before, there's a million billion other podcasters out there in the world, and I feel like one of the reasons I've been able to stay consistent with what my program is because not only do I love doing the shit, but I try to stand out a little bit more further than what everybody else is doing.
You keep your original thumbprint. Whatever I do, I mean, a lot of people trying to do the same things. Just like there's a million and one poets in the world trying to be authors and trying to succeed at that. Whatever I do, I try to make it to where it's me when you get it or when you hear it. Just like today's music versus yesteryear's music. Today's music, unless you heard the guy unless you know who's actually rapping the song, you won't be able to delineate a lot of these songs from each other because it's the same thing being talked about. It's all the way down to the same beat, to the same picking of music to rap over. Like my attitude has always been be original, whatever you do. When they see you coming, they know it's you. You're not mistaken for nobody else. You're not mistaken for anybody else trying to do whatever you're trying to do within that lane. So that's why I did the cover the way I did. I wanted everything to be, because obviously we got to go to festivals, we got to go to all types of places to sell our products, and you're competing against a lot of different things. You're competing against people who sell clothing. You keep competing against other authors, other poets who've written books. What separates you? Podcasters. What separates your podcast from this person's podcast? Because all that stuff is going to really dictate your level of success. How many subscribers you're going to get. That's going to be based, thoroughly on the presentation and having your own identity within it.
Right, and you kind of basically summed that up and kind of the answered whatever questions people may be having as far as like why so much of this division and so on and so forth. It's because everybody seems to be in competition with everybody. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, Elliot. When I first got into this podcast game, I never came into it with the intention of like, oh, I'm going to look at that person who's doing a podcast and that podcast and that podcaster, and I'm going to take him out and I'm going to go for the top spot. I'm going to put the crown on my head, and then I'll be king podcast of all time. I never got into that delineation. I never got into that thought process from the beginning. And I think it started out with good intentions in the beginning with every other person. But since it's become so it's become so part of indoctrinated in our culture now, in our form of entertainment. You can't help but see that there's quite a few bad seeds out there that are trying to be in competition with one another, maybe for their own ego, to placate their own ego and and their own validation, and it's kind of like soiling the pool for everybody else, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, and what was funny about you saying this is it went into, it really has a lot to do with a post I just put up yesterday. You know, where I was essentially talking about, hey, pay attention. You know, pay attention to people. Pay attention to people who say they love you. It's little things that I've never had a problem doing, whether I had the utmost level of love for somebody or whether I'm just barely getting to know them. Like I'm just getting to know you. You put up a post, you put up something with your podcast, I support it. I don't know you from can of paint, but that's just naturally in me. When I see somebody trying to do something that isn't knocking somebody over for their purse or stealing or doing something, you know, on the other side of the law to get over on people. When I see somebody like generally trying to fight hard, you know, and doing it in a positive way, I support it. But not everybody, you know, feels that way. I have close to 3,000, you know, Instagram and Facebook friends. I don't think I've gotten more than 100 likes on anything I've ever posted. But then people will take and share my post, and they'll get 200 likes off of my post that I couldn't get 50 likes on. And I pay attention to shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I pay attention to friends and, you know, people I've known for 20 strangers, you know, strangers, you have to earn that respect. But people who've seen me grow up and seen what my journey has been, and they don't, you know, for whatever reason, you can't even like simply like a picture. What's behind that? Because I know you see it. So you, you know what I'm saying? So it's like when I see that, and then you know, because we live in a society where phoniness, you know, has a lot of goodwill attached to it. It's goodwill attached with being phony. When somebody asks you how you're doing, they're not expecting you to say, my day was shitty, I want to kill myself. They're expecting you, even if you feel that way, to say, you know, I'm pretty good, I'll be all right. People don't want to know what's real. A lot of people. Some, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people.
No, but I get where you're coming from, because nobody wants to have that cynic around. You know, like you're already kind of ruining somebody's day, or even messing up with the energy in the room if somebody just simply says good morning, and then somebody snarkily will be like, is it good? Is it really good? You know, but I kind of like. I guess I kind of trained my brain to realize that sometimes a person like that, maybe they're coming off as a douchebag or as an asshole, but maybe they actually need the help. You know, maybe they actually really need somebody to talk to, and that's their way of lashing out. Now, as referring to the post that you were talking about, I'm actually checking it out right now. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also follow him on Instagram at P_O_M_E. Uh, I think this, you're referring to Happy Soul, where basically you're talking about you paid attention when you didn't get the invite or the thank you or the apology or so on and so forth. You go on to expand on that by saying it would behoove you to pay attention. Most don't have the courage to tell you how they feel about you directly, but they'll show you, even by doing so, something petty, like never liking a post. I live in petty times. Keep paying attention. And the reason that I bring that up is because that that uh that post actually would really resonate with me maybe several months ago, Maybe it doesn't resonate with me right now because I'm actually in a much better headspace than I was prior. But you never know what somebody else is going through, and they see that, and you basically just brighten up their day. I mean, it seems like you're kind of being a little bit of a cynic, but you're being honest, you're being truthful, and you're able to reach out and touch that person and you actually brighten their day as opposed to just like making them feel like they can't be honest with themselves and everybody else. So you never know. Like, so the whole thing about strangers sharing and liking and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I mean, I never, again, going back to social media and also going to this podcast, I never got into this for monetary reasons. I never got into it for ego. I never got it to be for validated by other people. This really started because I just feel like I wanted to do something that I feel like I will be good at, and I was able to prove it to myself that I can. And I just keep on doing it for the love. But I can tell you chapter and verse of plenty of people that I know that they probably have like 10,000 followers and they put up a post and afterwards they only get like 3 or 4 likes and they're having a shitty day for the rest of their day. I don't understand it. I can't read into somebody else's brain, but it happens a lot more frequently than people realize.
And I never want to give the impression that I lose sleep about any of this. I sleep well, but I think that's always the assertion and the assumption that's made is that, oh, well, you got the nerve to be upset about something like that. I'm not upset. Making an observation is not being upset. You're just saying this is what I see. I see what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna say that I see what you're doing. But it doesn't mean that when I after I say it, I'm walking around. I can disagree with somebody and be like, "Oh, you want to get something to eat?" Because a disagreement, a disagreement is simply we're just, we may come from different places, so we have different opinions. I feel like we live in a time because of social media, in part, that when somebody doesn't see things the way we see, the way we see it, it's an automatic affront. Like you're an op now because you don't view it the way I view it. I've never been that way. I've never went to unfollow somebody, block somebody because they said somebody, I disagreed with. But I damn sure got blocked and unfollowed because somebody didn't like something I said. But we coming from different places. When a woman puts up all men ain't shit, and she knows me and we're friends. The easy thing to do, well, what you trying to say? I'm your friend, what you trying to, or you can say that, yo, let's get to the crux of why you made a statement like that. But I know I treat you well, so I know this is happen. But it's an automatic with people like, oh, it must be about me or it must be an attack on me when somebody say, no, I try to understand where people are coming from, the origins of why they may, say this or post that or do this or do that outside of wherever. But a lot of people they're not trying to take that kind of time to decompartmentalize people and break them down and get to the heart of the matter.
You can't help out people if they don't want to help themselves. That's the way I look at it at the end of the day. Now, another nice segue. We're actually getting to one of my favorite poems in the book, and we won't get too much. We're not going to get all into the entire book and everything because there's a lot of gems in here, and I want people to actually check for themselves. But there was one that caught my attention, and this was probably my favorite. One of my favorite poems that you had in the book is called "Like Button," and it's a nice segue because we're talking about social media right now and the ego boost that it brings with it, and so on and so forth. But there's a certain line in here that actually really caught my attention. I wonder you wanted to elaborate on that, even though it might come off as a little controversial. But just bear with me. In one of the lines you said, "Ego will kill as many blacks today as a white person will blame the white person still."
Yeah,
I mean, pretty self-explanatory, but it kind of seems like there was a little bit of like a personal bias behind that, or maybe some kind of experience that you went through in order to indoctrinate that into the poem.
absolutely. I feel like in places where I've grown up, so much of your value, just like the value we feel by putting on a pair of Air Jordan sneakers, how it enhances us, even as grown men. I got this Jordans or I got this outfit. So much of our value we attach through social media, and And for what exactly? For what purpose? For a lot of us. And again, we're not dealing with absolutes. That's not every black person in the world is dealing with egocentricity based on, social media. But a large segment, of us, we attach our value to these things. When you don't get, 100 likes, you know, you find yourself, I've seen it with women a lot. You find yourself, like people damn near stripping down butt ass naked, for people to see them. You know what I'm saying? But they're not even when you do that, they're not even seeing you. They're looking at your body. I want to, freak off or whatever, but they don't see you. But we do these things so people can see us. You know what I'm saying? It's another poem there about Sarah Bartman, who was, the black woman who paraded around Europe, and how now, ironically, like 100 years later, everybody's running to go get these BBLs so they could be sexually objectified. I find that interesting.
Yeah. And also in that same poem, the light button. This is probably my favorite line in the entire one because I feel like it really resonates in today's with what everybody's talking about. You go here, the deal made between ourselves and sites designed to align minds with narcissistic hell. And the reason I bring that up is because the word narcissism has been thrown left and right everywhere. To like, it seems like it's like if somebody's just being an asshole, oh, they're just automatically labeled as a narcissist. Then this, then the third. People are not really doing their research on what the actual condition is. But the reason that I bring that up is because I think that even though we're not professionals, I'm certainly not a professional. You're not a professional. My producer Marvin's not a professional. We're not. We don't have any degrees in the shit or anything, but I think that we're starting to have a little bit more conversations just in general now where we actually starting to see certain traits that could be construed as narcissism. And then you have to kind of figure out for yourself if that person is really going through this kind of problem, whether it's actually a diagnosis, I should say, or if they're just simply being a dick.
There's a saying that I came up with. When you love someone, faults become virtues, and when you don't love them, virtues become faults. It flips. Like it's if I rock with you, and you're doing that, I'm gonna say, "Oh, look how confident he is," look how confident she is. If I feel like, I'm indifferent, or I don't particularly like you, oh, he conceded, she conceded. That's always in the eye of the beholder, and a lot of that stuff is based on, likability versus non-likability. But for me, like I remember going to clubs in the city, you know, while I was in college, after college. You walk in the bathroom, I'm talking about a pissy, shit, in toilets, bathroom, stinking and tight. And you walk in and you see a grown man angling himself, you know what I'm saying, to take a picture. It's like I like this is what's happened to us. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, not you could have went outside, a month. You're doing it in a bathroom.
There's other means that you could have done this other than the route you chose. Yeah.
Like, and it's like, and then I see kids following it. So now being a teacher, and now you're dealing with the next generation, the kids who are charged to lead us when we become the old fogies and we're washed up and can't do it no more ourselves. They're going to be the adults that are, charged to lead, the progression of our society. And how are they being, what are they being taught is normal? What are they being taught about their own self-worth and value? You know what I'm saying? And what is it attached to? And who are they looking to for these examples? What are they looking to for these examples? And every day walking into a school, can't even get through a 40-minute lesson because a kid is like buried in their phone. Little girls Snapchatting, wearing lashes that are like 10 inches long in seventh grade. I've seen it. Trying to pierce each other's belly buttons in class. That was this year, yo. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at this shit like, why? I like, yeah, yeah. You know, like kids is. I want to be beautiful. Like beauty is what you find in the dark, where everything is lost, where everything is stripped from you, and you still have to carry on. You have to look at yourself and still believe you're beautiful, and still believe, these things about yourself without all of the different things to attach to us to make. We put names on our back in the city that weren't our own to add value to us. Gianni Versace, Balenciaga. A lot of these people wouldn't even shake our hand if they saw us. But somehow that makes us valuable. This is what we're dealing with. That's what that poem is dealing with. That the part in that poem where I said, you know, relying on sites on which our parents didn't have to rely. Something exists for our folks. But somehow we can't go 5 minutes without it now.
Right. Now you just said a little something earlier where you said that we gotta do within our we gotta realize ourselves that we ourselves are beautiful. We gotta find that beauty within us in ourselves, and we gotta show that we have value than is what's naturally perceived. When you say that, and I could be wrong here, and I apologize if it may be misconstrued the wrong way, but it kind of seems like that was something that you told yourself a while back, maybe earlier in your life, where you didn't feel like you were worthy or didn't have enough value. And if that is true, how did you seem to get your way out of it? Because I feel like if you could share a little bit about that, maybe somebody that's listening or watching this right now, it would be actually very beneficial and helpful to them as well.
To be honest, Jason, I'm still in the fight. I'm still in because I don't think people get it. Like me and you are talking, I think you get it. A lot of people don't get it. And so much negativity has been attached to a lot of these statements I make, whether in poem or whether just in regular dialogue. You know, I grew up having to fight or damn near being a fight every day just because I wasn't 6 foot tall. Because the assumption was, oh, you must be a sucker or you must be that dude to fuck around with because you are this height. So you're getting that from your homies playing. So now you got to be on guard and be damn near where you get this term Napoleon complex because you decide you're not going to take shit because of something that you had no hand or no control in. Then you get the opposite sex. They've been taught what their Prince Charming looks like ever since Snow White. Strapping, broad shoulders, protruding jawline. You don't fit any of that. And you 5'8", not 6'2". So then you get, discriminated against from that angle. Then, you put on a little weight, then you get discriminated from that angle. So it's like a whole lifetime of being marginalized, discriminated, and put to the side and told, like I had to have arrogance and I had to start being an asshole in a society that's constantly telling you what you're incapable of being. That's all society and the people around me, even the people that say they love me. All I was told from even those people was what I was incapable of being, shown and treated like shit. Before we even dealt with racism, what white people thought of us, I had to deal with what black people thought of me. So when people, oh, he seems like an asshole, you got to understand where it began. And you got to understand the hellish nightmares that this person went through without poetry and without being able to talk about this stuff in a way that captivates. I would be even deeper within that own cesspool of self-doubt and self-marginalization because of what people impart upon me. There's a poem in that book called Self Portrait, encapsulates it perfectly from what you deal with when you love a girl and you can treat them right, but they don't give you a chance because you don't fit those metrics. What your employer does to you when you don't fit these metrics. What a homeboy, shake my hand and then say, yo, this is my nigga. This is what my life has been. So everything you get from me and anything I write has blood splattered all over it from the past. And even some speckles of blood from the present. It's going to be probably something that I take to the casket with me. Probably.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability. And, I think it's actually very brave of you coming out that way and speaking your truth because it's you know how you going through, what you've been through, your whole life story. And the best thing that you've been able to do is put all of that blood, sweat, and tears and pain and emotion into something that you love. And as simple as that may sound, there's a lot of people out there, billions of people in this world that are probably going through the same emotions as you and me have been through and how you're currently going through it, but they don't have an outlet. Their only outlet is to just lash out and blame everybody else for their problems in the world for giving them a shitty hand. So I actually commend you not only for your bravery and your honesty and your vulnerability, but your capability of actually trying to find an outlet and succeeding in that and giving a piece of yourself to the world in physical form in this book and other forms of medium. I mean, bro, I don't know many people that have actually told me that they've actually have published a book out there that is purchased, that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into. And I've always been a person that is about actions more than words. So this is action this is your words put into action right here. And I urge, and basically everything that I've read in here, even though I haven't met you in person, and we've been talking for less than an hour, I felt like before the cameras went on, I kind of had an idea of who Elliot Fant was, but I wanted to actually get to know him even more and elaborate on that to verify everything that I read in this book was legit. And I feel like I just got that verification. So thank you very much for your honesty. I really appreciate that. I think you're a good dude. Keep fighting the good fight and just share, take your broken heart and make it into art. Somebody told that to me a while back, and just keep on, keep that same energy.
But it's like, yo, what choice do you have, man? I mean, I think life, when you talk about simplicity versus abstraction, I think abstraction is buried within simple understandings. Rise or fall, sink or swim, do or die. Very simple, but very abstract. When it comes down to you live or you die, that is it's simple but abstract as it can get. You, you're in that moment and you either do or you die. You rise or you fall. You sink or you swim. It don't get no simpler than that, but it's very complex when you're in the midst of it. You asked me a question earlier about when did I know that this could be a bigger thing, and it came from that high school experience where I wrote that paper, and I had all these people like white people people from different cultures within because I didn't when I was a kid I just saw people with white faces and I said they were white. I didn't say they were Polish or Finnish or Russian or if you had white skin, you were white. You know what I'm saying? But people was coming from all areas of of the world. You know what I'm saying? And the principal shared my poem with the entire school, and that poem is actually in my first book. I put it in there, and that was talking about what happened to my mother in detail, and what I went through with my father and so on. So when that happened and then the next year, I did 1 year in county college, Union County College, after high school. I got accepted to 4 schools that they all were out of state, and my grandmother couldn't afford to send me because I didn't get any financial aid being out of state. So I went 1 year to Union County. I met a Navy recruiter um, at the end of that year, and he taught me. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm 19. I'm in this school. I think this is bullshit. Because if you don't test well, you can take the entry exam, be a smart person, but you don't test well. Now you got remedial courses, but you're not a remedial student. That's what happened to me. So I'm like, this. It just seems like this is a dead end, and I need to figure something out. So he talked me into going to the Navy. So I went to the Navy. When I was in the Navy is when I figured out that I could monetize my writing. Because I was writing poems for God, just singular poems for guys like from middle America, to send home to their girlfriends, and they would pay me $10, $15. I did this for like almost 25 guys in my barracks, and got paid $300, $400. And that's when I knew, I'm like, people see enough in what I do to hand me money for it. That's when I knew. But then I got home and I had to figure out, okay, well, how do I publish? You know, who do I talk to? And eventually I figured that out, and here I am.
Wow. Good for you, brother. Round of applause real quick for Elliot Fant real quick. All right. Well, listen, Ellie, I'm actually looking at the clock right now. We're almost out of time here, but I feel like I could talk to you for longer. And who's to say that you can't come back on the show? Who's to say that we can't actually meet up in person and actually expand on some of these other topics and
Oh
other
yeah, I'm
things
coming
that
in
we.
person. I'm gonna come in
Yeah,
person,
absolutely,
man.
absolutely. But so I want to get to it. I want to get to a segment. I want to get into a little bit of positivity here at the show that I like to cap off at the end. It's a segment, but first, before that, I just want to say one thing that I thought was really awesome in your book. It's just a quote, and you just say, "You go crazy trying to figure out why people do things. Just do your own thing." And I think that's just the biggest mic drop that you could have right there from your book. So, ladies and gentlemen, I urge everybody to go check out Elliot Fant's book, The World as I See It, now available. I'll put the link in the description of this episode and also share it on social media platforms. And also, don't forget to follow Elliot. Excuse me, Elliot Fant at P_O_M_E. All right, so to cap off this episode, I want to get into a segment really quick called This or That. So what happens on this segment is that it's basically based off of the old Black Sheep song. You can get with this, you can get with that. And I tailored around my guests. So basically just multiple choice questions that I'm going to give you, kind of like end things on a positive note, have a little fun with it. It's not the SATs, there's no wrong answer. So just do the best you can, and it'll be a good way for the audience to get a chance to know a little bit more about you. All right. All right. So you ready, Elliot? You ready, Marv? All right. So here we go. You, Mr. Fant, for this or that. Playlist or podcast?
Oh, playlist.
Okay. Slides or Crocs?
Slides.
Okay. Taylor ham or pork roll?
Neither. I don't eat pork.
All right, all right. That's actually like that's to determine whether you're from Jersey, from north or south, basically. All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
All right. Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
All right. Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Okay. Mac or PC?
Mac.
All right. Would you rather be embarrassed or be afraid?
Be embarrassed.
All right. Would you rather be too hot or be too cold?
I'd rather be too cold.
Okay. Window seat or aisle seat?
Aisle seat.
Yeah, you're just like me. I can't be on the window seat.
Gotta get up. I want to get up. I want to climb over nobody. None of that. Yeah.
Book smart or street smart?
Street smart.
Spoken word or slam poetry?
Spoken word.
All right. Reading or writing?
Writing.
Ice water or room temperature?
Ice.
Hmm. Are you glass half empty or glass half full?
Glass half full.
Nikes or Adidas?
Nikes.
And then finally, teamwork or solo project?
Teamwork make the dream work, bro.
Hey, there you go. All right. All right, ladies, for this segment of This or That. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of First Class Second Place. Thank you so much to my guest, Elliot Fant, for coming through here. Anybody want to give a shout out to before we close out real quick?
Just shout out to all my supporters, man, from the World as I See It. I sent out another 6-7 books for shipment today, man. I'm at 957 copies since October. Out of the 1,000 that I ordered, so I want to thank everybody who supported the book. And I'd like to thank you, man, for having me on, man, and giving me a platform to tell my story, man. You seem like a really good dude doing your thing, man. And I'm happy to have shared this time with you.
Likewise, man. The feeling is mutual. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind everybody that you could find Elliot Fant's new book. Well, not new, but new to y'all. The World as I See It. That's I with EYE, POME. You can now follow. You can now purchase it now at evoluteculture.com. The link will be in the description and in the bio of this episode. $30. Go support this man. Go support real art. And looking forward to speaking to you for the next time, brother. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in on this episode. And you can find me at I am Jason Enrique on all social media platforms. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube at First Class Second Place. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the First Class Second Place podcast. We out.